Making this record was sort of the result of two different impulses, two very different reasons to make something. The first one was just sort of incidental or reactionary to the project I'd done before, which was a really formless ambient record. And the way I'm used to working is making things that are quite rhythmic and quite repetitive, and crafting beats and using a lot of percussion. And because by nature the project was a drone record, there wasn't that much percussion that I could really get away with. So I was sort of stuck with using a lot of sounds that were not rhythmic, and as a result building up a lot of very rhythmic sounds on my hard drive that I wasn't allowed to use, but that I was making anyway. So I think this record became more rhythmic or forceful just as a byproduct of the last record lacking a lot of elements like that. So I think there was no way I couldn't have made a record this percussive if I hadn't done a record like I'd done before. But the other process defining this record was very intentional. I, for the first time, had sort of paid attention to sort of what other producers were doing. Because I think there's a trend in electronic music now that's doing one thing very, very well. But my first reaction to some of it was negative, and as I sort of sat with the sound and lived with it, I realized what I was sort of missing was this sense of a stage 2 taking place, almost like to try and make the sounds I was hearing more comfortable. And the way that I sort of sought to do that was to braid some of what's going on in electronic music now, without getting too specific, with sort of its opposite, very indigenous music, very acoustic music, very simple, repetitive music, something that wasn't full of squeaks and tricks and clicks and bangs and sounds like this, and sort of they're fundamentally enemies. This very urban, zeitgeisty sound, and something that's been around for thousands and thousands of years. But it was a fun challenge for me to try and braid these two worlds together. I use autotune a lot on this record, and I think part of it is an enormous fascination with music like leigh or electroshabi. This is music from over in the East, like in Egypt and stuff. And a lot of music that's being made over there right now uses autotune and pairs it with melismatic vocals that are not belonging to a scale that most autotune or vocoder systems recognize. So when you force these melodies through that system, it gets very unusual because you're consistently hitting notes, of course. You're singing in a scale, but it's not a scale that the programmers thought when they were developing the systems. So it becomes very interesting. It's like oil and water, and I think I sort of naturally sing like this anyway, so I've used autotune before in my work, and I decided to just sort of make a statement about using it, and it appears on, I think, every track on the record at least once. Lyrics were also pretty important with this album, and they hadn't been before. But again, this was sort of a result of reacting to my last record, and I made a drone album, as I said, but there was, although it was 90% vocal material, there were no vocal performances on it, in the sense that there were no words, and there were no lyrics, and there was no continuous take. It was all very edited and layered vocals, so I didn't think I'd ever do a record with 0 words on it, and then I also didn't think that I would do a record with like a love song on it, and there's like 4 or 5 love songs on this record. Tonic and Light were basically the first pair of love songs that I've ever consciously written, and they were both written around the same time, obviously for the same reason. I fell in love with someone, but they were both kind of dealt with in different ways. Tonic being a little more devotional, and Light being slightly more humorous, but in the instance of Tonic, I had written an instrumental and a melody to go with it months and months before, and it was actually the first piece I put together for the record, but the content wasn't quite there yet, so I was sort of struggling to find words to fit this melody that I'd written for the track, and it only fell later into place when I had sort of fallen in love and wrote some lyrics really quickly in my phone, and then sort of reassembled them while I was on a train ride to try and make it fit into the melody. But with Light, it was more of an improv situation, and I was able to sort of manipulate the vocals a little bit more and be a little bit more playful with the idea of sort of not quite a chorus, but a more repetitive situation melodically with the voice. Whereas with Tonic, it was more of a really extended verse that doesn't have much repetition. So I almost need the structure in Light to be able to be a little bit more humorous, and the kind of lack of structure in Tonic feels more devotional to me. And then it was when I was going through these tracks with the mix engineer, I realized that these are both like 90% rhythm, 90% instrumental, rather percussive sounds, and then like one soloed instrument. So in Tonic you get kind of a mouth organ flute situation, and in Light I'm playing jaw harp, and there's like a Missy Elliott humorous kind of bass line in there, but both tracks are like 90% percussion. The more you give of yourself within a body of work, the further chance that work has to sail through the universe and sort of reach more people. I think the more stingy you are with your emotional and creative output, the more stingy the returns might be, or the less you might affect people. And this record is all about affecting people.